You're listening to Infinite TBR, the podcast where we try not to buy more books. I'm Smack.
And I'm Gabi. Spoiler alert, we're going to avoid major spoilers, and when we can, warn when we're going to discuss a particular book in detail so you can avoid that part of the episode. You can also check the show notes for time-stamped flags identifying potential spoilers.
1, 2, 3, go!
Yay!
I forgot what we were going to do first. Book haul.
Talk about how it's been many moons since we recorded an episode.
It will feel like fewer moons to listeners.
Yes.
Because we did manage to bank a couple before the holidays.
But for us, it has been like 2 or 3 months.
I know. That is... Has it been 3?
I think so.
Yeah.
Because I think it was before Thanksgiving.
Oh my god. It's been a long couple of months.
It's been a long... We have learned the hard way that
Oh my god.
we should not plan for any recording during
the holidays.
the end of the year.
Yeah. Jeez.
Due to both the holidays and work crap.
Yes.
But now we're back.
Yep.
We have a big list of things to talk about.
A little burned out from work. Very pleased to be talking about books again.
So I think we were going to start with kind of a Sirens review, because we never talked about how Sirens went.
It
which
went
is at the
well.
end of October.
Spoiler alert.
Yes, of course it went well. It always goes well. I think we decided to start with
the
books we walked away.
Gabi got a bunch of books, because every year there's this auction on the last morning where all the people in charge of the con come out with these amazing things to auction off, and like home decor, handmade banners with dragons drawn on them, and all sorts of merch for like
stitching.
Yeah, various popular book series.
A villainous coat.
Yeah. Oh man, there's always a coat. Gabi got it this year. It's amazing.
Because it was a sad
It
year.
makes her look like an assassin, and it is so cool.
I wore it on a plane home. I felt like the most badass I've ever felt in my whole life.
You should. Did you wear that to a Halloween thing?
No, because Miranda
right.
had a whole thing planned, and it was a good thing, so I had to do the thing, and it didn't. I was supposed to be a detective, and it didn't really work as a detective.
You could have been like an assassin detective.
It would have been a lot more confusing. We already had to explain
both the
our
detective and the assassin
costumes.
who done it.
She was supposed to be the suspicious widow. I can't also be a suspicious assassin.
You were the assassin she hired, clearly. Okay. Anyway, Gabi got a really cool coat. And I talked her into buying an entire tote bag full of hardbacks.
Yes. She didn't have to try hard.
I know.
They had placed all of the books in a very excellent tote bag.
Yeah,
that
it was
said,
like,
it's not hoarding if it's books.
Yes.
Which I
so
already
they bring
needed.
out this fantastic tote bag, and it's clearly bulging with books.
And before they pull any out, I bid. I started bidding. And they said whatever the theme was for the books in it, I was like, yes.
I don't
It's like
remember.
it was high something. It was enough that I took away that it was going to be high fantasy.
Okay. Yeah, that's your jam.
It is my jam.
Okay, and then they pull out the bag. Gabi bids. Somebody else bids. Gabi bids again, and then they start pulling out books, and more people bid, and Gabi outbids them all, and they pull out more books, and I'm sitting there going, do it, bid, do it again.
And we were sitting there doing calculations as we went, because they're all
Yep.
hardcovers, and I'm like, okay, if I pay for this, is it the same as buying them all? Am I getting a good deal? And there's a tote bag to consider.
The tote bag had a lot of weight.
Yes.
Have you used it?
Oh, yes.
Oh, good.
Of course. It's like my favorite tote bag
Oh,
now.
I'm so glad. Oh my gosh.
Oh.
So tell me what was in that.
My goodness. So
I remember you said The Midnight Bargain by C.L. Polk was in there. Because you were gonna give it to me, and on the bus to the airport, she was like, "And you can have that one." And I said, "I already own that one."
Yeah. I was like, dang it! Need to find someone else to give this to.
Oh, no.
Because I already have a copy.
Have you read it yet?
No, I'm really looking forward to it, though.
I think you'll like it.
I think I'll like all of C.L. Polk's stuff. So anyway, and then also A Song of Wraiths and Ruin was in there, and that I did
By-
give to you, by Roseanne A. Brown.
Yes. And it is a very pretty hardcover.
It's beautiful
It
hardcover.
is.
But as we already know, even in the podcast, I already read it. And I was sort of pending the second book to decide on where I landed on that. So I just gave that to you. Race the Sands by Sarah Beth Durst.
Oh, yeah. I forgot that was in there.
Most of these I don't remember any of the synopses, but I am excited about all of them.
Magic
in the desert.
What's that?
There's a
show?
lion
The
on
Greatest
cover.
Race across a magical desert with creatures. I don't know. It
Okay.
sounded really cool.
That is part of the advertising as they're auctioning off. Like, they do describe.
Yes, they give us little synopses
Yeah.
and like AO3 tags if they know them type thing. Like anything they can do to entice us to bid higher.
They know what's up.
Because
Amy knows how to play it.
Yeah, that's true.
Like fiddles. We're all her little fiddles.
Yes. And it's not just like they're just trying to like make more money. All the money for these things goes toward scholarships so that people who can't otherwise afford to attend Sirens get some help.
No matter what. You know, your money is A, going toward books.
And B, going toward a good cause.
Exactly. So there are those. There was The Heroine's Journey by Gail Carriger.
Oh.
Which I think is a writing.
Yeah, it's a nonfiction book. I have almost bought that multiple times. I forgot you had it. I'm very pleased to borrow it at some point.
I need to we're starting to have a pile. Now there are 2 books I know that I own.
Well, that one, it's nonfiction, but it's her response to just the oversaturation of the hero's journey in Western literature.
Of course.
Joseph Campbell is overrated. The hero's journey
has been.
He's the guy who came up with the hero's journey.
Concept. Good job.
Yes. I think there's a whole book about it. You know, these are the steps of the hero's journey. This is why it's so important. But yeah, it is overdone.
Okay.
The hero's journey. So now we have the heroine's journey.
Yay! And Gail Carriger writes a lot of fun-sounding books. I still haven't read her
She
stuff,
does like
but
steampunk stuff. She has a one YA quartet, I believe it is, where they're like girls at a spy school in an alternate Victorian society, and the school is on like an airship or something. Those were good. I didn't finish the series, but that was because I got distracted before the last one came out.
you know how that goes.
But she also writes a lot of like adult romance, and she's a hybrid author these days, which is pretty cool. Hybrid meaning she is both traditionally published and self-publishes her own stuff as well.
Cool.
Yeah.
Like currently does both, or like went from one to the other?
I think she definitely started in traditional, but I think now that she started writing like adult romances, those she self-publishes because she's already got a fan base.
Right.
So
why?
Yeah.
Take
Why
out the
share with
middleman?
the publisher if you don't have to?
Good for her.
I know.
There was A Spindle Splintered by Alexi Harrow.
Oh.
Which is much shorter than I thought.
Is
I still
it
haven't
really?
read it, but it's teeny.
I can't even remember what it's about.
It's a Sleeping Beauty retelling.
Oh, is it?
And there's
Okay.
going to be a sequel.
Oh.
But it is like novella length, I think.
Oh, I read one of her short stories. That was the first time I'd heard of Alex Harrow because it was nominated for a World Fantasy Award.
Ooh.
And I was doing a review of all the nominees for the short story for the World Fantasy Award in like 2019 or something.
Okay.
Pre-pandemic.
Pre-pandemic!
And I loved her short story. It was dark and weird, and platonic love won out in the end. I like just really nice.
But you weren't a huge fan of the 10,000 Doors of January.
Yeah, I was sort of disappointed by the 10,000 Doors of January.
I loved that.
It was good in some parts, but it didn't leave me with that same rush at the end of her short story. So I haven't even read her The Witches one.
Yeah, that one that seems very Once and Future Witches.
Witches, yeah. Which is like women's rights and
It seems right up your alley.
labor uprisings with witches. I know, it seems like something. So like, I'll give her another shot at some point.
Right. The Obsidian Tower by Melissa Caruso, which just has a pretty cover.
I can't even picture the cover.
I've been staring. It's like white grayish background. And then there's like a circular like thing on the cover with like the little castle, and it looks like it's kind of floating, and I think there's like it's on a greenish...
What's it about?
I have no idea. I don't remember. I'd have to look it up. Hang on, let me look it up. It's one of those ones where I read the synopsis like once every 6 months, and I'm like, oh, I should get it.
Oh, that's a pretty cover.
Isn't it pretty?
This seems sort of complicated.
Yes, it's one of those. That's why I can never remember what it's about.
So it sounds like the main character has lost control of her powers. She accidentally kills a visiting dignitary. It's a secondary world. It's not our world. And then has to run away, falls in with a group of unlikely magical experts. So it's found family.
And then she has to save the world.
Surprise!
The Good Luck Girls by Charlotte Nicole Davis, which I've heard great things about.
I've heard really good things about that one.
It's not the type of thing that I would usually go out of my way to get. But since it has fallen in my lap, I sure am gonna read it.
Yeah. I have heard comparisons of that book to that one episode of Firefly where they're breaking a bunch of prostitutes out from a bad brothel in the middle of nowhere, and there's like a gunfight, and so that's what I picture when I see the Good Luck Girls. But apparently it is better than that, which in my opinion is not hard to do. Firefly is overrated.
I love Firefly, but okay. I mean, obviously, like,
it's also
there are problems. Joss Whedon has problems,
and it's also like 20 years old at this point. Of course, it's outdated.
But anyway, that all aside,
yeah, that's a different conversation. Yeah, so I know it's black lesbian, romantic, and platonic love. Also, that cover is just pretty. Oh wow, she's written like a lot of stuff. Oh no, that's the sequel. The sneak peek and the sequel. Westworld meets The Handmaid's Tale.
Ooh.
Yeah. So I fully expect it to be kind of a rough read, but I'm also looking forward to it.
Okay. You mentioned those. Legendborn by Tracy Dion. It has a very colorful.
Is that the one with the red and blue cover? I have had a friend tag me on Twitter just to be like, you're gonna love this book.
Oh, it has good ratings.
I know, it's really popular. It was on like the top of the Goodreads list for last year's. Like no, that's not true. I've heard very few bad things about it.
Okay. Interesting.
Yeah.
High schoolers in a magical attack. Flying demon.
A secret society.
Ooh, more found family, maybe?
Probably.
Ooh, we're messing with memory.
Oh, that's messed up. It's so
I
good,
don't
though.
know. I know. I don't know why.
So good, though.
That's one of my boxes.
I love that weird stuff. I love the tension between what characters remember and what the reader knows. That's my favorite. Oh, Descendants of King Arthur's Knights.
Okay.
So
cool. Which also is one of my boxes.
Yeah.
The Tangleroot Palace by Marjorie Liu, who is the author of Monstrous. I love those graphic novels. I keep meaning to get hard copies of them.
Oh, it's like a bunch of stories?
More pretty.
That is a fancy cover. What is this? Long-awaited debut story collection. Okay, I thought it might be like because the cover looks like the cover of Monstrous. Which is a marketing thing.
Yeah.
Not that it's a bunch of graphic stories.
Right. But yeah, I'm excited about that one just because I love Monstrous so much. Thorny tales of love, revenge, and new beginnings.
That sounds good. I am all in favor of story collections.
It looks like they're like fantasy. Some of them are like fairy tale retelling vibes.
Yes.
There's The Counselor by E.J. Beaton, which I think really sold this tote bag to me because that's been on my... I think that's another one that sounds like that reminds me of The Goblin Emperor.
Oh.
It has like kind...
I think I spelled this wrong.
It has 2 L's because whoever wrote it must not be American.
I don't think I've ever heard of this one.
Really? Look at the little dragon on
I
the
know,
cover.
it's a very interesting cover. Machiavellian fantasy follows a scholar's quest to choose the next ruler of her kingdom. Ooh, amidst lies, conspiracy, and assassination. That sounds pretty cool.
I think I've heard really good things. Well, apparently drug addiction is involved, and usually that's one of my not boxes.
Yeah, it's not usually one of mine either.
But for some reason, this has been high on my TBR.
Yeah.
Something. It might have been on one of those, if you liked this, you might like this.
Right. Trustworthy people in my Goodreads friends list have liked it, so...
Suspicious. So, and plus, I mean, maybe it's because I keep seeing the dragon on the cover, and I'm like, dragon on the cover!
It's almost 500 pages long. That's a big book.
That was the other thing. A lot of the books in this bag were just, like, thick. And I'm like, yes. Please and thank you. An Ember in the Ashes by Sabah Tahir.
That one is the first of either a trilogy or a quartet that is like super famous. I have not read them. I do own them.
Oh wow. In hardback or
ebooks?
Yeah, I see it all over the place, and I've heard about it all over the
place.
I don't know if
I've
heard,
right? The first one came out in 2016.
I don't know that I've heard anything from people I know about how it is, but it's one of those, there are multiple points of view and...
Inspired by ancient Rome. Okay, I'm there.
We're hooked. Soft boy doesn't want to be a soldier.
Wow, 26 of my Goodreads friends have read it.
Wow.
Holy shit.
How many friends do you have?
I don't actually know. It's not that many.
I mean, I have like 3.
Well, that's true. So I have a lot.
2 of them are family.
I know. One of them is me. It's okay.
And the last one, I think this was either in the bag or I picked it. I may have actually picked this one up at
the bookstore.
Book Off. But anyway, Beasts of Prey by Ayana Gray. And that one has a beautiful map in the front. I'm a sucker for a beautiful map.
I have opinions about maps, actually.
What are those opinions?
We should get into that when we talk about the Maleficent 7.
Okay. Make a note. Revisit maps.
Wow, this one's almost 500 pages too.
Like I said, they're all chonkers.
Holy cow.
Beautiful.
Yeah. That's a terrifying cover. I love it.
Isn't it great?
It's really scary looking.
It's like Beasts in a Jungle.
Yep. Angry snakes.
Angry snakes! So yeah. So they've since been distributed about my apartment in wherever they would fit. So I could be missing them, but...
It's been a while.
I believe that is the haul.
Yeah.
It's
and it was
enough.
10 or 11 books.
Yeah.
So...
It was a lot. And I got it for a steal.
Yes. And that was why you kept bidding.
Yes.
Because it was still cheaper than just
Yep.
buying a bunch of hardcovers.
And they had, like, I either heard of all of them or I was, like, at least vaguely interested in all of them. And I figured, worst case, I read them and then donate them back to Sirens.
You read them and then I read them.
Well, yeah. I mean, obviously, we read them and then I give them back. Okay.
Yeah.
In addition to those, which were at the auction, I also, from the actual bookstore, got a copy...
The Sirens bookstore.
The Sirens bookstore.
Yeah.
I got a used copy of The Winter Duke because it was there in beautiful hardcover. It did not look used. And I was just like, okay, now I have a copy of this one.
The Winter Duke by...
Claire Eliza Bartlett.
Yes.
We've talked about before. And then Range of Ghosts by Elizabeth Bear.
Because I really loved it when it came out. I read... It's a trilogy from like 2014 or something, so it's been a while.
Sure.
But I own the first one, and I got the other 2 from the library, and I very nearly went out and bought them afterwards, which I don't do unless I'm going to reread them.
Ooh.
But I just thought that was the coolest shit in the world when it came out.
That's promising.
Yeah. Yeah, I only remember, like, images at this point, but I remember enough to, like, shove it at you and be like, this one! The trilogy is complete!
It ends and it's fine. And then I went ahead and caved and got a copy of The Ruthless Lady's Guide to Wizardry by C.M. Wagner. And I tried to cave and get a copy of Stealing Thunder by Lena Boyden, but they didn't have
one. And the ebook for Unnatural Magic by C.M. Wagner just went on sale, and so I have that all for myself now.
So that was my Sirens haul.
I have no idea what my haul Okay, no, that's not true. I'll be right back.
Don't you remember playing Suitcase Tetris?
Mostly with COVID to this.
Oh, that's true.
Okay, so there were these 4.
Oh, yeah!
The Chosen and the Beautiful by Nevo. Tarnished Are the Stars by Rosie Thor. The Scapegracers by Hannah Abigail Clark. And These Violent Ends by Chloe Gong. Do you remember how I ended up with the Scapegracers?
Yeah, I do. I do remember. Vivid memory.
So, on one of these days, I think it's the second to last day of Sirens, our fearless leader, Amy, goes to the Amy and Faye. Yeah. So they gather a bunch of us up in the bookstore, and then they start pitching books at us. Not like physically throwing them, but like,
I mean,
it's close sometimes.
Not throwing.
Yeah, so they gather us up. They have a couple titles where they have a bunch of copies that they want to get rid of.
Yep.
Quote unquote, get rid of. And then they say, this one's about this. Who wants it? This one's about this. Who wants it? And then Amy held up the Scapegracers, and I was like, my hands went up. I didn't say anything. My hand went up.
And she handed it right to you.
Yes. And then she picked up another one to pitch it. I'm excited, though. It's teenage witches and mean girls who aren't actually mean girls, and it just sounds perfect. Also, the cover is like kind of creepy and awesome.
Yeah, the cover's awesome. So all of these, I think, except Tarnish the Stars, are all ones that I'm definitely going to wait for you to sign off on.
And then it wasn't just
they're all kind of dark
those,
and sad.
though. Let's see here.
And I don't know that I'll ever read The Chosen and the Beautiful because it's a Gatsby retelling, and I just was never a fan of that one. I don't know why it's so weirdly popular now.
I didn't hate Gatsby when I read it.
I kind of hated it.
Did you really?
I mean, I didn't like anyone. No one in that book was likable. And it was like, you know, about weird rich people in the 20s and class issues.
But this one is people of color, lesbians of color with magic. I don't know. I didn't hate it.
Again. You did read it?
Gatsby?
No.
No, I haven't read The Chosen and Beautiful yet. The ones I have read, Payback's a Witch by Lena Harper. That was really cute. I know I already loaned that to you. You'll like it. It's like this witch returning to her small hometown after living in Chicago and like trying to escape her past. And she comes home and this like, not motorcycle riding, but like a bad girl type person. And then there's this like sort of competition between all the magical families in their town. It was really nice. It was a really wonderful like October read. Yay. For sure.
Yeah, I missed my window to do witchy October reads, but
yeah.
Oh well.
I think that's the only... No, there must have been another one, but I can't remember what it is, and I do know I love it.
Is that where you got Blackwater Sister by Zen Cho?
Oh, you're right. That is where I got that one. Oh man, Blackwater Sister was amazing. I had 3 real... Like, November was an excellent month for reading. One of the reasons for that was Blackwater Sister by Zen Cho. Yay. It was fantastic. I think it was the first... I had just read The Order of the Pure Moon Reflected on Water by her, and it was fine. It was good. I enjoyed it. Blackwater Sister is another beast entirely. Okay. It's about this Malaysian American girl who isn't technically American. So she and her parents came over to the US when she was like 3. And her dad got a job. He had a visa, and then he lost his job, and they went back to Malaysia. She, I think, could have technically stayed, but like she's sort of post-college at loose ends. She's hiding her girlfriend from her parents, and then she starts hearing the ghost or the voice of her dead grandmother. Ooh. Turns out she's possessed. Ooh. And it's such an interesting book. I don't want to spoil any of it. Don't. It's so good. Okay. I loved it. And I loved it for reasons I didn't expect to. Definitely read that one.
Okay. It's on my snack shelf.
I know. So that was my Sirens haul.
It sounds so much less insane.
I did really well at Sirens this year.
I would have done well if it weren't for that the
I know.
tote bag.
Also, for me, egging you on.
Well, I mean, yeah. But it was also my Christmas present.
That's
so-
true. I subsidized your book haul.
And so I guess now is any Sirens highlights we can remember that we want to mention. Because, I mean, Sirens is like a really awesome... It's just a really awesome thing.
Positive,
They canceled...
feminist, safe space.
Yeah. They canceled Studio this year, so we didn't have that.
Which was like a pre-Sirens couple of days where they bring in an extra guest of honor, they bring in extra authors and agents, and sometimes editors. I mean, it's like its own like mini pre-convention convention.
And they're like special workshops for reading, writing.
Everything's really
and
intimate.
publishing.
It's a much smaller scale. So they didn't have that this year or in 2021.
Right.
You know, rightfully so. But some of the guests of honor from what would have been Siren Studio, they had present their stuff during regular Sirens, like Marie Brennan. She did a really good, wasn't really a panel, sort of a lecture.
Yeah.
On how to world build and the sort of things you should.
Awesome.
Yeah, it was really good. And she's so smart. And she's trained in multiple disciplines, I guess.
Yeah.
And one of them's anthropology.
Yep.
And like, I don't know how she doesn't have a doctorate. She's so smart.
Yeah. And she's published at least 2 like world building guides. And it was a lot. I remember telling you, listening to her talk was a lot like reading those books.
Right.
In a good way.
And I took more notes for her lecture than any other panel at Sirens. I couldn't really write fast enough. And so I remember it was very calming where you were like, it's all in that book.
Yes.
I read it. I gave it back. You own it. It's going to
I
be
own
okay.
both of them, so we're good.
Yes.
And then the other guest of honor?
I was going to say the other panel I really liked was Bethany Powell's, and she did one on speculative poetry.
That was surprisingly intimidating because I didn't realize we'd be sharing, and I don't like suddenly sharing.
You were very hesitant, but you did a good job. I liked your poem. So she gave a brief lecture on sort of the differences between what we consider regular poetry and what we consider speculative poetry. And then we read a couple of examples, and then she gave us a prompt and sent us off to corners to write a poem, and then we came back together in groups and read our poetry to one another. And it was a real, Gabi just about had a heart attack, but it was a very positive environment. Nobody was allowed to say anything critical.
It was a very nice.
I know. Yeah, I am not a poet, but I enjoyed that because it was
different.
Not like light and breezy, but like it was totally safe space.
Yeah. Which is how Sirens just kind of is.
Yes. Yeah.
That's the beauty of Sirens.
Yeah. So, guests of honor?
Guests of honor. There were 4. There was Kenetra D. Brooks, who wrote...
She's an academic, isn't she?
Yeah. She wrote Searching for Sycorax, which is an academic book about Black representation in horror movies.
Black Women's Hauntings of Contemporary Horror, a critical treatment of Black women in science fiction, fantasy, and horror.
I remember that one was really dense.
Was it?
Like, even more
dense
dense
than
than
you loaned it to me,
Shell.
but I don't think I actually
got around to reading it.
Yeah. But I really liked her in person.
She's so
articulate.
smart.
Yeah.
So smart, so articulate. A lot of her work is outside of my normal sphere.
Yes.
Just because I'm not, like, I don't read a whole lot of horror.
Yeah.
Well, I'm not an academic, and I don't read or watch a lot of horror. So,
yeah.
That one and Body Minds Reimagined by Sammy Shelk mentioned a lot of horror pieces that I've never read or seen. So it was a lot of...
Yeah, I don't watch visual horror. Right. I can't. I'm too much of a chicken. I can't do visual horror. It
doesn't really scare me, and then it doesn't engage me, I think, in a way that...
It doesn't scare me while it's on the screen, but then the story ends, and people go home, and I'm lying there in bed at night going, holy shit, I'm gonna die. Or worse, I won't die. So I can do, like, horror books. I can't do the screen stuff. Nope.
I think the last movie I think you could classify as maybe as horror that I watched, I'm not sure it really counts, was a pandemic movie.
Oh, that's fun.
And I think it was Outbreak, that one from like the 80s or whatever, and it was like right in the middle of...
That sounds exhausting.
It was ridiculous.
Yes.
So in some ways it was okay, and in other ways it was very uncomfortable.
My mother told me recently that she tried to watch Station 11 and she didn't know what it was going in.
Oh no!
I know, and I was like, I could have told you wouldn't enjoy that. I'm so sorry.
The book is so good. So when she's ready, she should read the book. But,
really?
Mm-hmm.
Oh my gosh.
I
thought you were lukewarm on the book.
I'm lukewarm on her other stuff.
Oh.
This is Emily St. John Mandel, and I've now read 3 of her books because she's one of Dad's favorite writers.
Really?
He loves her.
I sort of remember that.
My dad loves kind of like the melancholy stuff, the beautiful melancholy stuff, and she's very good at beautiful and melancholy. And then Station 11 was beautiful and interesting because it does time jumps, so I don't know how much you love that. But it jumps between this pandemic starting, and this is like a kills 96% of the population type of pandemic. So really like shuts down the world, and the world, like humanity basically has to restart from the dregs of what's left. So it switches between the pandemic starting and then like 11 years post-pandemic and like what the world is like now that all of these systems that you are used to and you don't think twice about are gone.
That is everything I do not want in my fiction right now.
So not a good one right now.
Literally every box I do not want.
But it is like extreme. Like takes it to, and it's more about the things in society we take for granted and finding the beauty in
horrible situations,
kind of, and in like humanity, and because like and then there's also like this like weird preacher cult, preacher in like the future
I hate.
that they have to like overcome. So it was like things that are not good right now, but it is. So that I loved. I loved Station 11. Okay. I would reread that one day.
Okay.
One day when I'm over the pandemic. Right.
After a lifetime's worth of therapy.
Yep. At the end of my life.
Yeah.
I'm like, yes, I'm ready.
And then you croak.
And then I croak. And then, but The Glass Hotel, which is another one of hers.
That one's not a pandemic, is it?
That's about a Ponzi scheme. And that's like a modern contemporary fic about a Ponzi scheme, and it alternates between, you get like some of the guy who's like pulling it off, and then some of the people who are like affected by it, either directly or indirectly. And again, it's beautiful and interesting, but man, is it a bummer. And I don't know if I would have liked it. It wasn't beautiful in the same way Station 11 was, even if I think I were in the right headspace for it. And then the last one, and then I was like, I'm never going to read anything by her again. And
I do remember that part.
we thought it'd be fun to do a family book club. And of course, the one my dad picks is Last Night in Montreal by Emily St. John Mandel. And that one is like, this guy is dating this girl who can't stay in one place. Like, she's been with him for like 6 months, and then she like ups and disappears one day.
Oh, wow.
And she just does that. Like, she just can't stay in one place. She's never, and it turns out her father technically kidnapped her when she was a kid. Because and it turns out, like, do you care if I spoil this?
No, I don't care.
So, spoilers! Future Gabi here, letting you know that this long spoilery rant for Last Night in Montreal lasts until about the 40-minute and 45-second mark. It turns out that, and I mean, it's not like, I mean, you kind of get what's going on pretty early on, like, it's not that surprising. Her mom's definitely, like, abusing her for whatever, like, throws her through a window type stuff. And that was the breaking point. And then her stepbrother calls her father
to
let him know.
Right.
And then he comes in the middle of the night, takes her away, crosses the border into America, and they basically spend their lives running. So they don't spend more than
couple of months
in one place. They keep changing her name. So she's just, since she was a kid, has been living this very
transient life.
Yeah. And he eventually settles down in like Arizona, New Mexico or something.
And she just
keeps going. And that's just how she is.
That's so interesting.
So yeah, it was interesting, but the way, and then if it were just about that, about her and her adventures, would have been 100% on board.
Yeah, that sounds like my kind of thing.
But it's not. It's about him and the fact that this girl up and left him in the middle of the night. And oh, woe is him. She was the perfect girl. Now he has to go find her.
Boo-hoo.
So he gets, like, all obsessed with tracking her down and, like, I don't know, making sure she's okay or whatever.
I don't know. I feel like tracking her down is not the nicest thing to do to
like,
her.
if she wanted to be found, she would have left
a note.
Forwarding information. And then there's, like, this side character who wants to find her, who's trying to get the, I forget all their names, but there's a side girl who's the daughter of the detective who was going after
the mother?
The father and the daughter.
Oh, because
the father's kidnapped her.
Because it's kidnapping, right.
So the detective had been following them and was like X days behind them, like her whole life. And because he got obsessed with this case.
I was going to say, that doesn't sound super realistic that, like, his department would let him.
It got even weirder.
Oh, great!
It started as an official... No. I think he was, like, overworking, and a private investigator reached out to him about the case. Because he has an uncanny knack for finding people. And they were like, can you help with this case? And he was like... Sure, let me just clear with my boss. And boss was like, yes, please, take a sabbatical, go away. Take some time, man. Go do your thing. So that's how he ends up with this case, but he becomes obsessed with this case.
He sounds like he's got a real healthy relationship with work.
Has a family, like has a wife and a daughter, and so becomes completely neglectful of that whole situation, which is its own dumpster fire. And then, like, and so his daughter grows up with all these abandonment issues, because at one point the wife just leaves.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
And doesn't take the kid?
She starts a fling with someone else, and basically keeps, like, daring him, basically, to mention it.
Right.
And, like, to talk or communicate or get upset about it. And, like, he doesn't. Like, they just don't communicate. He's off in his crazy work land, and the daughter's just, like, stuck with this toxic family. And anyway... So then she grows up, and then she becomes obsessed with this girl that her dad was obsessed with. And she's like, I want to find out basically why he was so obsessed with her this whole time. And he disappeared for months.
Really?
And she was like in middle school and high school, and her mom had left. Like, she was basically fending for herself. Like, it's so messed up.
That's awful.
And then so she sends dude a note. Like a really, like, shady, I know where your girl is. And then he shows up, and they have a really weird relationship because she's trying to find her, to get her to tell her the story of how they ran her dad off the road.
There were a lot of hers in that sentence.
I know, sorry. I wish I could remember names. The
kidnapped girl.
So at one point...
The cop's kid.
Yes.
And the boyfriend. Yes. That's what we're calling them now. Okay.
At one point, the detective catches up with the kidnapped girl and her dad.
Okay.
At this point, it got really weird, because at one point, it basically became, like, pretty much almost speculative. Like, the guy just knows where they are at any given time.
Weird.
But that's, like, as far as that goes.
Okay.
That's it. Like, he just gets this weird connection to her, and then, like, they're in the middle of the desert... And he finally, like, tries to catch up with them on the road to let them know that he's not going to follow them anymore so they can relax.
And then they run him off the road?
And they run him off the road because they think he's, like, that he's going to go back and tell the mom. And then the mom's going to come after the daughter. So they run him off the road, and he gets, like, he doesn't die.
But he's deeply wounded.
Important point here is he does not die. He hurts his leg really badly.
Okay.
So he had, at that point, he had basically dropped off of the map for like a year because he was recovering in America somewhere.
Couldn't call home to his daughter.
He's a useless father. So that happened, and then so the detective's daughter becomes obsessed with basically getting the kidnapped girl to admit that this happened.
Right.
But she won't cop to it. And the only person she's ever told is Dude. And so when Dude shows up, she's like, I'm not going to tell you where the kidnapped girl is until you tell me what happened this day.
Okay.
And he tries to be like, I have no idea, she never told me, blah, blah, blah.
Why?
And then they're in this stalemate for like a week, or months. Really long, stupid time in Montreal. Aww. And then, like, at the end, he finally, like...
Caves.
Okay. I don't remember what prompts him, but he finally tells her, and she's like, cool, and then walks in front of a subway.
What?
And that's, like, how it ends. And, like, and the kidnapped girl shows up again at the last second, but they don't actually meet again. He ends up going back to New York and just moves on with his life.
That's dumb.
Isn't it? Sorry, Dad, I know you love Emily St. John Mandel and you love her books. This book was stupid. I get why he loves it so much, because it's all atmospheric. It's all about soaking in.
I mean, like,
the vibes and the
reads,
melancholy
like,
and the weirdness.
Classic literature.
Yes.
Weirdness. Oh, God.
But, like, so we started high with Station 11, and it's just been downhill.
That's unfortunate.
Yeah.
So.
But I do think that's reverse order of how they were written, so maybe.
Yeah, people
Glass
get
Hotel
better.
might have been.
Jesus
I mean, it's not even necessarily a bad book, it's just stupid for me.
Yeah, no, that sounds like...
Sorry,
You didn't like Great Gatsby, but, like, that sounds like something I would have hated in 11th grade of literature.
So we went on a huge Sirens tangent. It had nothing to do with Sirens at all. I don't remember how we got here.
I don't either.
But that was Emily St. John Mandel. So anyway, Kenitra D. Brooks.
Oh my God.
And her very smart...
Is that where we...
That's where we went on a huge tangent. She's very smart. We had Sarah Gailey, who did their keynote on queer coding villains in movies.
Yeah, that was really interesting, because they talked about the major picture something of America. I don't know, the green thing, and like the state of movies before them.
Yep. And censoring.
Yeah.
And...
massive censoring.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't realize. It was just such an interesting talk.
Yes. It was funny how the keynote speakers did so much on movie. I guess it's like an easy one to visually...
Yeah. Because Rin Chupeco also had a lot of movie examples.
Yes. They wrote the Bone Witch trilogy, which a lot of people really loved.
The
first one's a lot
fully expecting to adore every moment of it.
Right.
So I did have some high expectations. Okay. But, like, the first book, The Bone Witch, goes back and forth between a present timeline and a future timeline. And the future timeline was awesome. She is, like, grown up and emo and gothic and, like, is raising monsters and telling the story of, like, how she grew up to this bard or whoever. And then she's got this a zombie dude who's like he's technically a zombie, but I think he was like still himself. I don't know, I couldn't tell. But it was just cool. And then we went back to her being like 16 and she's trying on dresses and like finding her place in the world.
So
blah,
this girl
blah,
has
blah, blah, blah.
necromancer powers, which come with a really bad rep.
Yes.
So, and like, in this frame tale, in the present, she has this very villainous reputation.
Right.
And has done a whole bunch of horrible things. We don't know why or how or blah.
Yeah.
And then, like, and in the back, like, you know, she's a kid. She's grown up.
And she, like, I get why the two timelines work, where one of them, her younger self, has to deal with this assumption by a lot of people that because she has necromantic powers, like, she will automatically grow up to be evil.
Yes.
And, like, she's such a, like, softy, daisy, sunflower kind of person.
And she's super principled. So it's, like, it has to do with this contrast between, like, how on earth did she get from point A to point B? So that's supposed to keep you engaged.
In what ways did she live up to everyone's expectations? Because you can tell there's something else going on.
Yes.
And that was the most interesting part of the entire book, but I got to the end, And there wasn't enough of her future self. And I could not imagine.
And that does get better. Like, as you approach
I know.
the present from the past, it does.
I do regret not reading the rest of them. Because
but I
have
also
heard from so many people that the books 2 and 3 are awesome.
So that's the thing is, this is another one where a lot of people still loved it a lot more than I did. And some of that may be because I wasn't a huge fan of the audiobook reader. And some of it it just sounded like they always wanted to cry. And I was just like, it's okay, let it out, cry. And they never did.
And get it out and
Get
move on with your
move on.
life.
Not on them, just a quirk. But also, like, people were really into the OTP pairing. Like, people are just falling over themselves for it.
I mean, like, I was...
And I
was
okay. Did you even get far enough to meet the dude that she's... Okay.
Yeah, because it does, like, sort of like a bait and switch.
Yeah. I wasn't sure how far the first one got in that whole thing. But I don't know, like, their relationship development didn't grab me the same way that seems to have grabbed a lot of people, but all the Raising Monsters stuff was all really cool.
Yeah, the Raising Monsters.
The world building's awesome.
That showed, like, she started raising monsters at the end of the first one, and if I'd gotten more of that, I'd have absolutely gone out and found the second and third books.
But. It's Rin Chupeco's keynote.
Yes.
Sorry.
Ghost
Circle
Girl.
back around.
A lot of, like, Asian women in particular, because I guess that's a subgenre.
Yeah. Well, horror movies, I think, especially in...
Yes. Stuff like The Ring.
Yeah.
Where women are denied vengeance, essentially.
And ghost culture is very different, too. The way East Asian culture views ghosts.
Yeah. And
is much different than how Western culture...
Rin Chupeco's keynote was actually... They recorded it ahead of time because with COVID and stuff, they couldn't get into the country on time. Which was really unfortunate, because it was a really interesting talk.
Yes.
I liked that one.
Yeah, I would have loved to see that one in person. And then Fonda Lee, who wrote Jade City.
I have not read Jade City.
That's the one where I read half and then simply couldn't. Not because it wasn't good or I didn't like it. It was because I really liked it. Someone I like dies at the halfway mark. And then I was like, I started at the beginning of the pandemic, I think.
Oh,
and then I was like, I can't handle this right now.
Yep.
So I got to the halfway mark, and I was like, okay, I'll read this
You said you would wait until the end of the series.
Yes.
Guess
when
what?
all three were, I know.
The
they're
series
all out
is
now! So now I just need to wait until I can emotionally handle it and just blaze through them. Because they were so engaging. It was one of those ones where it switches between viewpoints. And I wasn't totally in love with everyone. Okay. So it was like, I didn't like very many people. Right. So I didn't really care what happened to most of them. Yeah,
that's hard.
And then the one I really did care about.
Deeply invested in.
Ate it immediately. I was like, well, I gotta reframe my expectations for this whole trilogy. But there is at least one other character I did really like. Okay. And I'm interested
feel like
to see how...
part of what Fonda Lee talked about was... She, prior to becoming an author, she was like a high-flying female executive in the corporate world. And she could have stayed on doing that, it seemed like.
That sounds like my worst life.
Yes. Yes, I am not built for that kind of world. I am barely built for an office job. But, like, she talked about the drive to be the best and to be in... the upper echelons of a corporate environment and how that applied to her female characters who were in charge of all these, like, they're like gangs, right? In the books. Yeah.
It's kind of like The Godfather.
Yes.
Godfather, but not that I've ever seen The Godfather or want to see The Godfather.
Okay.
But it's Godfather with magic.
So we're going to say mafia vibes instead of maybe Godfather specifically. Mm-hmm. So yeah, it's like these warring gangs.
And the head of the opposing family is this high-powered executive woman.
Yeah. And, God, she just made it sound so cool. And she has, like, there's this joke that, like, a lot of lawyers become romance authors, but, like, you don't hear a whole lot about, like, presidents of major corporations quitting their job to become a speculative fiction author. And it sounded like part of that was motherhood changed her priorities a bit. But, like, I just thought that was fascinating.
Yeah, her story was fascinating. Her books are
and how clearly she outlined her experiences in the ways that they influenced her character building. God, she's just so smart.
Mm-hmm.
They
were all really smart.
And they were all really different, too.
Yeah.
But it was fantastic. It was such a
It's always interesting
wide
to
array.
See how on the same topic the keynote speakers always come up with.
Mm-hmm. So, yeah.
Other Sirens highlights. There was a crafting workshop where we got to knit and or cross stitch, and I don't knit very often, so I opted to knit.
Yeah. And I wanted to learn how to cross stitch, but there was a shortage of instructors. So instead, I went to go put on my mermaid makeup for the Sirens Ball. Yeah. I spent weeks watching YouTube videos and practicing, and
it was incredible.
I'd have one half of my face done in one style and the other half of my face done in in a different style, and then I'd come out of the bathroom and be like, which ones do you like better?
They were awesome. And then you did mine too.
Yes. I didn't do yours very well.
Disagree.
Okay. Well,
we're mermaids. So the Sirens always end Saturday night with this.
The Sirens Ball.
Sirens
you dress up. There were some really good dresses this
year.
Yeah.
Well, the costumes are always off the charts.
Ridiculously good.
And there's a group of dancing.
Yep.
There's a silent
there's a bar.
auction. And then there's Gabi's spot.
There's a murder
mystery.
Which is basically a giant logic puzzle.
It is.
Which counts me right out.
And I am happy to spend the entire time doing nothing but.
Which you did.
I did. I've done it 2 years in a row now.
Yeah. So
3 years
the first
in a row.
year you tried it, the only reason she didn't win is because she was checking her work and it took too long.
Yeah. So,
moral of that story is don't check your work.
Mm-hmm. Nope. Just go for it. This year I won!
We were all very proud of her.
Yay!
Did you get anything at the silent auction?
Not at the silent auction. The artwork this year was incredible. And I bid on a really pretty, glass. I don't know what the material was, but it was freaking gorgeous.
Yeah.
And I wanted a print.
I bid on a bunch of stuff.
Yeah.
But I got a little wolf necklace that glows in the dark.
Yeah.
I actually really like that. It's sort of campy, but it's one of my favorites these days.
That's important. This is what fills your heart with joy.
Exactly. And I know I bid on, it was like a pocket watch or
I forgot
compass
about the
or
pocket
something.
watches,
Yeah. So you bid on one, and I was trying to outbid this other person, but mostly I just drove up the price, so neither of us could afford it.
And then I remember you were very helpfully helping me bid while I was off murder mystery.
Yes.
Thanks.
Yep. And in the process, I learned what not to do at a silent auction,
which is
bid the entire time.
Oh,
you gotta slide
until,
in at the end,
5
which
minutes
everybody said, and I was like, nah, I got this. I did not get this.
So it's been a while, so I mean,
right.
we're probably forgetting so much, but those are the things that stood out enough that we remember. It's always a lovely time, and then we were told they're not going to have Sirens this year, and we all cried.
This year, as in 2022?
Yes, now that it's 2022.
They make the announcement for the next year's theme right after the auction where Gabi won her awesome coat.
And presumably they hide hints about what the next theme is going to be in the program.
Right.
And I was combing through the program trying
to
decide what the next theme was going to be.
And there were a lot of thorns, so we were thinking something about borders and boundaries. Mm-hmm. But nope. No theme next year. They're taking 2022 off.
Turns out everyone's burnt out for some reason.
What? Yeah.
Couldn't be me.
Yeah, so, I mean,
well-deserved.
Absolutely.
Well-deserved break.
Everybody needs a year off.
Yep.
And that means we don't have the Sirens reading list this year.
Yes.
Which means we can get through our own backlog.
Yes.
That's our new goal, right?
Mm-hmm. Well, yes. So, my 2022 goal is to get through my Smack shelf, specifically. Which is a pile of 30 books. I don't know.
What? No. 30?
Hang on, let me double check. I remember thinking it was a manageable number that I could definitely do in 4 months if I had to.
That is oddly specific.
36.
Really?
36 books? Is that higher or lower than you thought?
Way higher. I thought you had
really?
a dozen or something.
No.
That's hilarious. Oh my god, I had no idea. All I know is that I see you and I hand you books every time I see you. But like, you always hand me books too. They just tend to be your books to borrow.
Yep.
Oh my goodness.
And I've been busy reading the Sirens list.
Where
for 2
am I
years.
going to put 36 books when you finish them?
They all fit on a shelf. If you're creative about stacking that.
Oh my god. Oh my... I don't have room for 36 books.
I'll read them slowly.
Yes, please.
And maybe there will be ones that you don't like enough to keep, and then I can keep them, and we both win. Okay.
Well, as long as you read slowly enough, I think I can encroach on the rest of the bookshelves and the bookcases and the rest of the house, where I'm not supposed to put my own books, but like, let's be real. I'm the only one here with more books than sense.
You just need to put books that your parents are likely to enjoy in those spaces. And
My mother doesn't read speculative fiction, and my dad only reads very,
like
manly, guy-ish. Like, I gave him a bunch of, like...
sad Russian
Asimov. Like, I got him Minority Report one year. I got him, like, Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep?
The gateway,
like,
gateway ones.
But, like, he has very specific tastes, and he doesn't read a whole lot.
Right.
So mostly it's me and my mother fighting for shelf space.
Gotcha. You have Gavin's room.
It's true. There's some room in here.
Yeah. There's plenty of
My
room
brother's
in
old
here.
Anyway.
We need a closer for the halfway point. So, like, here's hoping.
Here's hoping you enjoyed our Sirens content, because there's more.
This has been another episode of Infinite TBR. You can find us on our Twitter at Infinite TBR.
And we are individually on Twitter as @WhatSmackSaid and @Gabalodon, which is like Megalodon, but Gab in the front of it. And you can find all our show notes at infinitetbr.com. If you have book recommendations for us or questions you want answered during the podcast, feel free to email us at itbrshelf@gmail.com.